Because of the tsili money, the marriage dowry, the mother forced her son twice to become a live-in son-in-law in the wife's family. And now she wants to force this same son, who already married into another household, to take on all the medical expenses of her gravely ill husband. Should a son who married out really be the one carrying that responsibility?
和我老婆结婚，所有的酒席，包括人情，他是全程不管，也不负责。他就是什么呢？就是我结婚，他过来吃个喜酒就走。买东西好，全部是我跟我老婆花，包括喜酒，买的这些全部是我老婆花的钱，他一分钱没管。然后我老婆还给了他1万。结婚借他的房子，当时我没有房子嘛，借他的房子过渡一下，就结婚1天用1天，让我老婆家里面过来看一下，是吧？有房子在这里。对，就是这个意思。他不肯，借了一个多月，借不到。
Surprisingly, all of this happened because they didn't want to pay the tsili, the marriage dowry, and they weren't even willing to lend their own house for him to use as a wedding house for just one day. But the mother, Yaro Biyun, denied everything her son said. She insists that she only let her son become a live-in son-in-law because the family's financial situation was so bad they could barely put food on the table. After saying that, she even showed her husband's medical report to prove she wasn't lying. Yaro Biyun explained that her husband, Zhu Tian, had always been in poor health, constantly dependent on medication, and was recently diagnosed with advanced-stage lung cancer. Now the cancer has spread to his brain, and she spent all of the family's savings trying to treat him. So she went to her son, asking him to help pay for his father's treatment. But to her surprise, Zhu Guangkun coldly refused. He even said that his father's life or death had nothing to do with him. Yaro Biyun never expected such coldness. Not long ago, her son had received 200,000 yuan in relocation compensation, yet he refused to give even a cent toward the treatment and didn't visit his father at the hospital even once. Following Yaro Biyun, the reporters found her son, Zhu Guangkun. When he saw his mother, his face showed no warmth at all, only coldness. When the reporter asked why he refused to cover his father's medical expenses, Zhu Guangkun angrily pulled several payment receipts from his pocket. He explained that he regularly goes to the hospital to pay his father's bills every few days. Each time might only be 2,000 or 3,000 yuan, but added up, it's not a small amount. According to him, the real reason his mother keeps showing up and causing scenes is because she wants to get her hands on the relocation money. She just wants the money. I never said I wouldn't help. But now that the money came in, she wants to take all of it. Do you think that's fair? He said. Under the pressure from his mother, Zhu Guangkun reached his limit. He told the reporter that his father had undergone surgery the previous year, and he had borrowed money from everyone he knew just to afford it. He recently received the relocation compensation, 200,000 yuan. But so far only 100,000 has actually been deposited. He used that 100,000 to pay off old debts, and the little that remained was used for his father's medical bills. Now, he has practically no money left. But Yaro Biyun insists that the compensation belongs to her, and that her son has no right to use it, much less pay debts with it. Why? The truth is this. After Yaro Biyun married her husband, she never transferred her household registration to her husband's home. Because of that, both Zhu Guangkun's and his sister's household registrations remained at the maternal family's home. When the sister reached school age and needed to study in the city, Yaro Biyun transferred her own registration and her daughter's to her husband's home. But she intentionally left Zhu Guangkun's registration in their hometown. By coincidence, that area was recently designated for demolition and relocation, and because his registration was there, Zhu Guangkun received 2 resettlement houses and 200,000 yuan. Yaro Biyun believes those properties originally belonged to her, so the 2 houses and the compensation money should also be hers. But when she demanded them, her son refused without hesitation. And that completely shattered their relationship. In Yaro Biyun's view, the only reason her son became like this is because of his wife, Gao Lu. According to her, if not for the daughter-in-law's influence, her once obedient son would never abandon his parents. Consumed by anger, Yaro Biyun even cursed her daughter-in-law in the middle of the street. She told reporters that Gao Lu is her son's second wife, and since the wedding, she has never visited the in-laws, not even once. Even now, with the father-in-law gravely ill in the hospital, she hasn't appeared and is supposedly encouraging her husband to cut ties with his parents. Yaro Biyun blames everything on the daughter-in-law, but Zhu Guangkun couldn't bear to listen anymore and exposed the truth. According to him, the real reason for the distance is the parents themselves, who, in order to save on dowry money, forced him twice to become a live-in son-in-law. Even at his own wedding, his parents didn't help with anything. All the banquets, drinks, gifts, and social obligations, everything was paid for by him and his wife. His parents didn't handle a single part of the ceremony. At the wedding, his father only showed up to eat and then left. Since he didn't have a house at the time, he asked to borrow her house just to cover the situation and hold the wedding for a single day. His wife's family would come to see the place, to confirm there was a house. But she stalled for over a month and never lent it. In the end, he couldn't borrow any house at all. Zhu Guangkun said that since childhood, he has never felt any affection from his parents. Not even during important life events like his wedding did they show support. They stayed on the sidelines, didn't help, and didn't contribute anything. He said that from the age of 8, he already had to take care of himself. His parents would leave early to go gambling and return after midnight. He would come home from school, cook dinner, take the food to them, wait for them to eat, and only then could he eat. Obsessed with gambling, his parents never cared about him. In elementary school, he was already washing dishes, cooking, and doing all the household chores. At 13, he was forced to drop out of school to work, washing dishes, carrying gas cylinders, doing all kinds of heavy labor. And almost all the money he earned, he sent home. He kept almost nothing for himself. He always longed for some care and affection, but from his parents he received only coldness. Many times he even doubted whether he was truly their biological child, because he couldn't understand why he was treated like that. When he said all this in front of everyone, Yuan quickly claimed he was making everything up. She said he was only saying that because he didn't want to use the compensation to treat his father. But then Zhu Guangkun revealed the real reason his mother was asking for money. She doesn't want 4,000 to treat my father. Those 4,000 are for her. The money for my father's treatment, I already pay that separately. After that, Yuan began looking for Zhu Guangkun over and over again, demanding that he give her 40,000 yuan. At first, Zhu Guangkun thought his mother wanted the money to treat his father, so he explained that he already went to the hospital regularly to pay for his father's treatment. But to his surprise, his mother insisted that she wanted the money in her own hands, and she couldn't explain exactly what she needed it for. So, Zhu Guangkun refused her request. He didn't expect his mother to go as far as throwing herself on the ground, rolling, screaming, and making a scene, and even spreading rumors around saying he was an unfilial son. Later, he finally discovered the real reason. This money is for you to use. Your husband is dying, you don't have money, so you need to take some while you still can. That's what her family wants. Zhu Guangkun also said that his father receives 3,300 yuan in retirement money every month, which is more than enough for his mother to live on. The most urgent thing now is treating his sick father, and he would do everything he could to raise money for that. But when it comes to a money request without explanation, coming from his mother, he would never agree. When she saw her son wouldn't give in, Yuan began crying loudly in the middle of the street, claiming that the daughter-in-law was influencing him and destroying the relationship between mother and son. When the daughter-in-law, Gao Lu, arrived, Yuan began yelling at her in front of everyone. When we're at the hospital, have you ever put in any money? How much have you paid? Do you have any money? No, you don't. Do you have a father and mother? Then why do you treat your father-in-law and mother-in-law like this? You're not worthy. Faced with the insults, the daughter-in-law stayed silent, avoiding direct confrontation. Zhu Guangkun immediately stood in front of his wife to protect her. Yuan insisted that she had sacrificed so much for her son all these years, and she never imagined he would become such an ungrateful person. Hearing that, the daughter-in-law, who had been silent until then, finally exploded. My husband became a live-in son-in-law, and that was your idea. You said that after that, your old age would have nothing to do with us. And now you're charging us? You're the ones who proposed this. You said it clearly. Even though they were excused from taking care of the in-laws in the future, the couple never completely abandoned the family. When the father became gravely ill, they also tried to gather money to treat him. It was the mother who made everything impossible, creating conflict after conflict, until the situation became what it is now. After that, Yuan called the Zhu family relatives, hoping they would take her side and force her son to hand over the 200,000 yuan in compensation. But to her surprise, all the relatives stood on Zhu Guangkun's side. No one wanted to get involved with Yuan. One of the relatives said, "He knows what is done. Anyone looking from the outside can see who's at fault. The problems with the daughter-in-law? Her fault. The problems with the son? Also her fault. The relatives told the reporters that when Zhu Qian got sick, everyone gathered money to help with the treatment. But Yarrow Biyun took the money and went shopping to buy gold jewelry, completely ignoring her husband who was lying sick in the hospital. If a family member hadn't happened to see her at the mall that day, they would never have found out. When confronted, Yarrow Biyun claimed the jewelry was for her husband, but no one believed her. After all, for someone critically ill, what matters is medical treatment. Gold jewelry is useless. With no support from any relative, Yarrow Biyun went once again to her son and daughter-in-law, demanding that they give her money to treat her husband. Zhu Guangkun explained that the remaining 100,000 from the compensation still hadn't been deposited. But he said he could use one of the resettlement houses to pay for his father's treatment. However, Yarrow Biyun immediately refused. She wanted to keep both houses for her grandson. Then Zhu Guangkun suggested selling the car that was in his father's name. But Yarrow Biyun rejected that too. For her, both the houses and the car were her property, and Zhu Guangkun should use his own money to treat his father. Otherwise, he would be an unfilial son. His mother's attitude left Zhu Guangkun deeply disappointed. But even having grown up without affection or support, he said he would do everything he could to raise money and treat his father. He would take on his responsibility as a son. And he also hoped that one day Yarrow Biyun would recognize her mistakes, and that the family could live together peacefully again.
We grow up hearing that family is everything, that a mother is never wrong, that blood always speaks louder. It sounds beautiful, until you come across stories like Guangkun's, where the blood does speak, but it speaks charging interest, late fees, and preferably in 100 Yuan notes. Some people only remember they're a mother when they find an opportunity to turn their own son into an ATM, and when the card gets declined, the drama begins crying, falling to the ground, and a full performance that even soap operas would be embarrassed to copy. And the saddest part? Society still expects the son to smile, to be grateful, and to obey every demand as if it were an honor. But let's be honest, what kind of filial devotion survives when the person who should protect you spends your entire life using you, ignoring you, or blaming you for choices that were never yours? Forcing your own son twice to become a live-in son-in-law just to save money on the dowry, that's not poverty, that's messed up priorities. It's basically saying, my wallet matters more than your dignity. And then they still show up with that ready-made speech that children must repay their parents. Repay what, exactly? Years of neglect? Recycled humiliations? Emotional abuse packaged as tradition? And when it's finally time to treat the sick father, the only one who clearly never received even the minimum care in that household, the person asking for money isn't worried about his health. She wants to secure her own savings, her safety net, her little 4,000, just in case. Preferably before the rest of the family discovers how much she actually cares. That's the painful part. The mask falls quickly. While Guangkun struggles with debts, bills, hospital payments, and overdue fees, his mother somehow finds the time and energy to turn everything into a public spectacle of victimhood. The love she claims to have never showed up when he was 8 years old cooking for himself. Never showed up when he dropped out of school at 13 to work. Never showed up at his wedding when the family's only contribution was showing up to eat for free and leaving right after. But now it shows up because money is involved. Irony really never misses. And then there are still people who say he changed because of his wife. Of course, blaming the daughter-in-law is always easier than admitting the real problem started with the parenting, and that the wound isn't new, it was only hidden. Even so, in the middle of all this, Guangkun does what many wouldn't. He still tries to save his father. He still tries to be the son who never had an example to learn from. And at this point, the whole story becomes clear. It isn't about resentment, it's about boundaries. It isn't about cutting ties, it's about stopping the exploitation. Maybe the real moral here is very simple. A child's love is not an infinite credit line, and respect doesn't come from people who only show up when they smell money. Family isn't just who shares your last name, it's who shares responsibility, care, and humanity. And when that's missing, what's left is exactly what we saw in this story. Absurd demands, emotional blackmail, and a mother willing to turn her own son into the villain simply because he finally chose to protect himself. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next video.